Okay, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. Man, I am bringing you guys some of the best business owners really across the country, specifically within the law firm niche. And Craig is a super impressive story going from 0 to 60 employees. Picture that in a law firm. Most of the people who listen to our channel are at or below 10 total employees. So just picture 6 times 10. And that is what Craig is managing on a daily basis. And he's actually built such a well-run machine that I've heard through third-party sources that I pestered him and hunted him down to do this interview because I was so impressed. He's actually packaged his operating systems, and now he offers that to other attorneys through a summit called the Seven Figure Attorney Summit. Really impressive stuff. Craig, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure, Bill.
So I'm going to dive right in because I have some insider information from a mutual connection Craig and I have. So what is with the whiteboards all across the office?
Well, Bill, I learned a while ago in some of the programs that I take that employees and departments like to see a visual representation of how they're doing. So one of the ways that other companies do that is, even like Google, is you have big whiteboards and you track the important things on a whiteboard so that you can see what your metrics and your production numbers are. So every department in my office has a whiteboard, which is, just a dry erase board with a couple metrics on it. For instance, the intake department has 2 graphs, which is how many cases did they sign up for the month and how many did they sign up year to date. So those are the 2 things that are important in the intake department. So we have that on the wall. And then we have incentives where we financially incentivize those metrics so that everybody gets excited about getting to certain numbers.
That's awesome. So would you say it is equally about like having the whiteboards, having publicly available KPIs within your law firm? Is it more about incentivizing employees, or is it more about accountability, or is it equal?
A whiteboard and incentivizing and accountability are all such important terms. And my answer to you is all of those things. So one of the things is people are visual learners or people are auditory learners. And people are also attracted to either hearing praise or seeing production. So the whiteboards appeal to people who like to see their production and see their success. It's kind of like how charities have that thermometer where they're trying to reach a certain amount of money. And you get close to the goal and the thermometer spills over and everybody's excited. Well, it's the same thing with whiteboards. You get to your goals or your production numbers and everybody gets excited, and then you put some money behind that and it makes it even more fun and more exciting. So as far as accountability, I can be here on a weekend if I wanted to be and walk around the office and see how my entire office is doing by looking at 4 or 5 or 6 different whiteboards. And I don't even have to talk to anybody if I didn't want to.
That is amazing. And that's one of the things that impresses me so much about what you've built is how well managed it seems. So, I definitely want to go into what are some of the growth phases. So I broke it down, and you may disagree, but the way I was thinking was like, what is the growth phase going from 0 to 10 employees versus the problems that need to be solved going from 10 to 20, 20 to, let's say, 50? Or maybe you would break it down differently, but what are the phases that you've noticed in growing a law firm?
In the early phase, you got to figure out what should be done by you and what you can start to delegate. And that examination never ends, no matter whether you're going from 10 to 20, 0 to 10, or even to 60 or 100 or even 500. So you have to figure out how to get yourself out of processes. So the key to that is to create the processes. Anything that can be repeated in your office deserves a process. So if you do it more than once or you do it over and over again, it needs a process. And that process needs to be in writing, whether it's on your computer or somewhere in a manual. I used to have it in manuals. Now it's on the computer, accessible to all, so that they don't have to repeat things. So once you create a process, then you can get out of that process. So even such things as ordering office supplies. I used to figure out how many Post-its we needed to order paper when I was one employee. At one point, I realized this needs to be delegated. It's not worthy of my time. So we came up with a process for when and how you order Post-it notes or letterhead. And I haven't touched that since. So everything is about processes, procedures, and getting yourself out of it. And the larger you get and the more employees you have, the more structures and procedures you have so that you are not an integral part of every process, because that limits and inhibits your growth the more you're involved.
Wow. Okay. So then the next step, the next question becomes, in my mind, and I'm sure, attorneys who have maybe less than 10 employees, even 5 employees, were thinking is, how do I have the time to build processes? So how did you prioritize that to where you actually had chunked time in your calendar, you felt productive, but you were nonetheless going through itemization of processes? How did that happen for you?
Well, I realized that I was spending all my time doing depositions and reading files and reading medical records because I'm a personal injury attorney, and that I wasn't working on my business. I was working in my business. And if you're never working on your business, it's never going to grow. So what I did early on when I was maybe 26 years old, fresh out of law school, is I decided to structure 2 hours a week, Friday, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, where I would not touch a file. I would not work in the business. I'd work on the business. So during those 2 hours, I would set up lunches. I would create procedures. I would do things that were working on growing my business or in structuralizing my business. And I still do that now, although I probably spend 40 hours a week instead of 2 hours a week on the business. But at the beginning, I had to do depositions and trials, but I had to have the discipline to put it all down. And I chose Friday afternoon because Friday afternoon, most guys are out at happy hour or something else. But I was sitting there in my office making sure that the business was supported and not just the cases I was working on. So the answer is time blocking is what it is called. And if you don't do the time blocking, you're never going to actually put the file down.
Interesting. So now, some of my last questions, because I'm so fascinated with your mindset and being so disciplined and time blocking, there had to have been a book or a mentor or someone like maybe the E-Myth or Traction or some framework that made you conceptualize this in your early days.
Well, the E-Myth was one. And then I got a hold of a company that I've been involved with for 20 years. It's based out of Orlando, Florida. It's called Atticus. And Atticus is the largest lawyer coaching company in the country that I'm aware of. And it teaches, first of all, the concept of time blocking. And really its fundamental core is to work on your business rather than in your business. So a lot of the terms I use, the focus on KPIs, even the whiteboards came out of a book that we were assigned in Atticus called 4DX, 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Yeah,
so
I just read that.
A great book. And so that's where the whiteboards come from. So, a lot of the learning was through not only learning myself, but with a structured guide being a company called Atticus. And I've been involved with Atticus for 20 years, and I'm still in one of their courses now. So that company has been invaluable to me in learning a lot of these concepts that I knew I had, but it really helped me drive them home.
Okay, now questions are flooding in my mind, as I'm sure it is for everyone listening. And I'm taking notes actually, which I don't always do because this is very amazing to me. I want to ask before I go into more detailed questions, because I'm just fascinated to know when you started practicing law, did you see this for yourself? Did you see this clearly? Did you see the end in mind? Or was it just, hustle and bustle, day-to-day responsibilities, and then somehow a light bulb goes off?
Well, there's a couple of answers to that. I got lucky. Out of law school, I was hired by a personal injury lawyer in Miami, and I happened to have been dating his daughter at the time. So he already had an active business where he had a very large law firm in Miami, and he was a TV advertiser. And when he hired me out of law school because I was dating his daughter, he said, do you want to be a lawyer or a businessman? And I said, both. And he said, okay, I've got plenty of lawyers to teach you how to be a lawyer, but I'm going to teach you how to be a businessman. So I had a dual education, and that's just luck, who I was dating at the time, who's now my wife and has been for 25 years. But he gave me a dual education, which was forced upon me or offered to me, and I accepted it. So I went on all his, TV shoots, and I helped negotiate all his contracts with vendors, and he taught me how to do payroll, even though I was just an associate attorney. And so he really brought me in and mentored me, and still now we talk. He still has his massive law firm, and I have mine, and we actually compete, which is kind of funny here in Florida. But he's been my mentor since I got out of law school. And so he introduced me to the concept of business and running your law firm like a business. And he was, one of the pioneers in that area 25 years ago when no lawyers thought of their companies as businesses at all. He already did. So I guess you can say I had a mind for business, and then I found a mentor that happened to be, I just got lucky and he led me.
but you also put yourself in the position to be lucky.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Another question that's popping up, and this is kind of like an all or nothing question, so that I don't expect it to be a clear-cut answer, but I wanted to ask you, and I wrote this down before the interview, if you could just master one skill and have that be the impetus for massive growth in a law firm, and you had an option between two skills, leadership or marketing, which one would you choose?
I choose leadership because once you're a leader, you can hire a marketer. And if you can lead that marketer to great things like I have in my law firm, then the leadership skill is all-encompassing. Whereas if you just have the marketing, then that doesn't spread to all areas of your law firm.
Great answer. I had a feeling you were going to say that, because leadership is the multiplier. It's the unseen multiplier for every facet of the company.
I agree. And
so,
in fact, what they teach you in any leadership courses, that if you are a leader, you can grow leaders within your organization. So I have 6 or 7 team leaders in my organization, such as my marketing director, who we've grown to now have a staff of 5. So he was my only marketing guy, and now he has a staff of 5. So we grew him into being a leader, and now he's a force multiplier, as they call it, because now his marketing team is 5 people instead of just 1, and he started alone in my office as just the marketing director. And so if you're a good leader, you can grow leaders.
Great point right there. So in your opinion, and you've worked with a lot of lawyers, and I'm sure people have different definitions to the answer to this question, but what makes a law firm successful to you and in general?
What makes the law firm successful to me is that everything has a structure, because employees, whether in any type of company, need to know what's expected of them, need to be trained, and need to know what they're trying to reach. It's like running a race without a finish line. If you don't have a structure or goals or metrics, you don't know where you're trying to get to. You don't know what the end of the game is. You don't know the goal of the game. So our whiteboards, for instance, clearly say what you're trying to do. It's a scoreboard. Here's what you're trying to get. And if you don't have structures and systems set up, they don't know how to run the race. They don't know where the finish line is of the race. And they don't know what the point of the race is. So how can you lead an organization where nobody knows what they're doing? So that's the structure. That's what makes a good law firm a law firm. And the second thing is, it's really hard, but in the Atticus course, there's a concept called killing the hero. So most lawyers, we have big egos, and we want to run the firm based on how we want to do everything, and we want to be a part of everything, because that gives us our sense of self-worth. Well, that's called the hero model. And you can't really expand and grow unless you kill the hero. So you actually have to kill your sense of self-worth being based on the fact that you're involved in everything. For me to not know a lot of things that are going on in my law firm is really hard, because I'm type A. I'm a micromanager like every other lawyer, and I want to control everything. But it's funny now when people say, who does your SEO work? And I'm like, I don't know. Ask my marketing director who does my SEO work. I have no idea. It's uncomfortable at first when you can't answer that question. But the larger your organization grows, the less you know. But if you've grown it correctly, that's okay. So killing the hero, if you have a law firm where you've killed the hero, that's a successful law firm. It's hard for me. It's hard for any lawyer to kill the hero. But you have to take off your cape. And you have to get yourself out of a lot of processes. And it's been hard for me to take off the cape, but I've done it to a large extent.
Wow. Great advice there. I remember, I think Bruce Lee once said, pretty philosophical statement, but to die before you die is liberation. And what he meant by that is to kill the ego before you die, before the end of your life, is the ultimate sense of freedom. And that, I believe, is especially true in business, where you have to give up decision-making power in some way, shape, or form. So my fear right now in this is, I know we're going so into management theory, but I feel like there's probably some people listening going, what the heck? Like, where do I even get started with thinking of management theory like this? Like, I'm struggling. I have no hours. I get calls from lawyers all the time. We run a marketing agency, and rescheduled meetings all the time. I'm in court. So what would be your advice for someone who feels like there's not enough hours in the day right now?
Well, there's a couple things. One is just having the discipline to do a time block. One of the first things I did, as I said before, was just a Friday 2-hour time block every week to work on that thing that's on the corner of your desk. that's like just a business card of a guy you should get lunch with. So just time blocking is the first thing you could do. Even if it's an hour a week, do an hour of a week of the things you know you should be doing to grow your business, whether it's make a phone call and set up a lunch, or whether it's just create one structure, one system that you can delegate to your secretary. That's one thing. The next would be read the E-Myth. It's a great introduction to this whole concept of metrics, of how to look at your practice, how to look at your business. The third would be, frankly, I love Atticus, and they have a one-day seminar called Double Your Revenue. It's a way you can dip your toe into that organization, see if you like it. It's in Orlando. That's the shortest course they have. It's a one-day thing. And if you look up Atticus online, I think is what it's called, at their website, that's the way you can give them a call. It's a free phone call for them to kind of look at your practice and see if they can help you. It's been one of the largest influencers on my life. And then maybe come to my summit. It's also a one-day investment on April 23rd in Manhattan, sevenfigureattorney.com. That's also a one-day investment where you can come and kind of hear from soup to nuts how I run my law firm, because I speak, my office administrator speaks, and my director of marketing speaks, and then we actually have a speaker on meditation and happiness for lawyers. So it's really pretty cool, all-encompassing day of learning how to run a business like a business, and then how to get your brain a little bit still with some meditation techniques, and how to get home on time.
Yeah. And I'm sure having other people responsible for portions of your business allows you to get home on time more often. 4 really big tips you just gave. I just want to summarize. Number 1 is time blocking. Number 2 is reading E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Next is Atticus. And then lastly, you mentioned the Seven Figure Attorney Summit. I want to identify quick while we're fresh on the Seven Figure Attorney Summit, because I do want more people to become aware of this. And I want to also have people be aware of who it's for and who it's not for.
Sure. So Seven Figure Attorney Summit I designed maybe about 5 years ago to give like an inside look at one law firm, my law firm, because number one, there aren't a lot of seminars on the business of law. So the topic itself is new. Most of the seminars are how to take a deposition or having something to do with running cases or closing arguments. So this is not on that. This is on running your law firm like a business. So the topic, first of all, is unusual. The second is there aren't any seminars I'm aware of in the country where you get to hear how one, what I would say, well-run law firm does it from a couple of the leaders within the firm. So all of the speakers, except for a couple of them, are from my firm, my marketing director, me, and my office administrator who was trained by Disney World. So she's got pretty good HR skills. So you have all the leaders of a firm that's run pretty well giving you their secrets about their role within a successful organization. And it's all packaged into one day. And then we throw in a speaker on happiness and meditation. And then this year we're having Andrew Finkelstein speak as well, who's one of the leading personal injury attorneys in the country. He's in New York, and he owns Jacoby and Myers. So anybody from New York knows Jacoby and Myers. So we've got a great moderator and speaker who's internationally known, and then everybody from my office to talk about how we do things at our firm.
Yeah, and I like the viewpoint there of diving deep into one firm that's well run versus we now live in a how-to society. As I say in some of my other videos, anyone can just go and type in how-to and then whatever their problem is, right? And then they get 14 different opinions. My belief is that the more opinions that you get can sometimes cause overwhelm, and maybe it gives people more context to see how just one well-run law firm is structured. Would you agree?
I agree. It's kind of packaged to be that way. So it's still overwhelming. You know, any good seminar that gives you 1,000 ideas can be overwhelming. But if you look at it in the structure of one company, then you can see how one company does it consistently throughout the company, because we all talk about what we do at my law firm. So all the speeches are rather conjunctive in their subject. So you can see that we all work together as leaders, and we have really good synergy among all of us leaders to see that it's one company. So, you know, you come out of the seminar and oftentimes people say, look, if I got 3 actionable things to do, it was worth my day. Well, I've had people come up to me after this seminar and it's like, I got 30 actionable things to do. Absolutely worth my day. And I don't feel so overwhelmed because it was one law firm, one company. So I've got a lot of things to do when I get back to the office.
So what tools do you use to have ideas executed other than the whiteboards? Do you use, I know we talked quickly before the call, I think, about strategic coach, and I'm in strategic coach, and I use impact filters, and I use tools to I'm a high quick start on the Colby profile, and therefore I'm always like new idea. So I've created a protocol where I actually have to filter my ideas through a KPI sheet and really flesh them out before I share them with the team. Do you have similar habits with ideas before you share them with the team?
I do. So first, if I learn about something, I think about it for a while to see if I want to implement it. And then we usually set up some sort of implementation plan with an accountability structure. So for instance, we changed our incentive plan for our pre-suit department recently. So I designed the plan. I had a meeting with some team leaders about getting their input on the new point system, the new incentive system, how much money we're going to give. So then I got buy-in, and anybody who's in leadership or management knows that you have to have the buy-in of the people who lead this plan, and then the buy-in of the people who are going to be affected by the plan. So we make sure we have a buy-in among the leadership team and the staff. And then we have an accountability system set up so that we make sure at certain intervals that the plan is being implemented. And if I'm lucky, then I can delegate even the accountability structure to a team leader so that once we come up with and design the plan, I'm done. I'm out of it. And then I delegate even the accountability to the team leader for that plan, and then it's underway. And then I may check in later, a year later or something, to make sure my team leader has successfully been held accountable himself.
So this is a question I always ask, and it's open-ended. What is accountability?
So accountability, I think there's a book, I don't remember, it's called Carrots and Sticks. And so carrots are things people like. I think it's a good thing. Bunnies want carrots, or animals want carrots. And sticks are a little, slap on the hand, some sort of penalty. So most of our accountability systems and our incentive systems have, you get a point for a certain thing. For instance, intake. You get a point for signing up a case. You lose a point if you had a case that was qualified and we wanted it and we didn't get it. So that's a stick. So a stick is something, you hit them. A carrot's something you eat. So carrots and sticks is rewards and penalties. So the key to an accountability system, in my opinion, is you have carrots and sticks. And then at the end of the day, you count up the carrots, and a stick is a negative. So, if you get 60 intakes in a month, for instance, or we sign up 60 cases, but we lost 5, then the net score is 55. 60 minus 5 is 55. And if they reach 50, they get a certain amount of money, and 60, they get a certain amount of money, 70, they get a certain amount of money. So the carrots are the cases signed up. The sticks are the points taken away for cases we lost, and you get a net score, and you assign a certain amount of money to certain levels of that net score. So we do that in every single department, and we pay out a lot of money in incentives, but it ends up producing so much in revenue that we're happy to give that money because it means everybody's doing their job.
The follow-up to that is then, what is that opposite side of accountability? I feel like this is where the visionary leader type most times suffer, is they want to be the positive, gung-ho, believe in everyone type. And then when it comes time, on the opposite set of accountability, where there's tons of those -1 points, right? Where is the fine line between believing in someone and saying, hey, pat them on the back, you can improve, versus having to put your foot down and make those tough calls?
Well, once you objectify it and make it a production goal or a KPI, it removes the emotion from the stick. So I don't have to browbeat intake for losing cases. If they lose 5 and therefore they're each losing $100, I don't have to say anything. They know that there's got to be something worked on, and their boss knows, or their supervisor knows, if they've lost 20 cases and lost 20 points, I don't have to say anything. There's something wrong. There's something broken. And because I've delegated that authority to a leader, if that leader can't figure out how to get that 20 down to 2, then they come to me and we brainstorm and we figure something out. But it removes the emotion. It removes the pain point of scolding people, because if they have too many negatives, then they know that their production is going to suffer and they're going to earn less money, so something's broken. So I don't find myself in that much of a position of having to discipline, because the discipline comes from the numbers, and the numbers are part of a structure and a system. So I'm not walking around telling people they're not doing their job, because they know it, if their numbers are down.
Got it. Wow. So numbers tied to everything allows you to be less emotional in your decision making and allows your team to be less emotional because there's actual numbers they can look at.
Right. I mean, if the expectations are on a board instead of coming out of my mouth at an office meeting, then they're measuring themselves against the production numbers on the board. I don't have to lead. There's a term that I like, which is you can either lead by what you're seeing, observation, and score by observation, or you can score by production. And if you catch people on their cell phones, then you're leading and you're running your office based on observation, and you're going to get upset because people are going to be on their cell phones. If you're leading based on production, then if occasionally you see people on their cell phones, but they got to the third tier of their incentives that month or that quarter, you're okay that they're on their cell phones occasionally because they're kicking ass in all the other metrics. So it's a much more comfortable place to be as a leader if you lead by production and you measure by production rather than observation.
And I do want to respect your time. I do have a couple more questions, but if
Sure.
you'd like to sign off and do another one, we could do another
Well, I
one.
did the time block for today's interview, so we're okay.
Okay, awesome. Practicing what you preach. So the next step then becomes technology, because you can have all of these systems in your head, you can have them on whiteboards, but I know very well from James, our mutual connection, your case management system and how you integrate that between all of your departments is like, it sounds like something that like an algorithmic programmer would create, where there's automated notifications popping up on people's computers so that there's absolutely no balls dropped on the ground. So what has been your epiphanies or understanding, or how have you implemented technology into your firm?
Sure. Well, long ago when technology wasn't such a big thing, I'd have manuals with all the procedures. And of course, we'd give a new employee a big thick binder or 5 thick binders with all our procedures. With the advent of technology, coming as far as it's come, we now have our case management program happens to be called FileVine, which is a cloud-based program, which is absolutely wonderful that it's task-based, and all the tasks are triggered by other tasks. Since if you file a lawsuit in a personal injury case, we have it set up to automatically generate 8 tasks, for instance. Did you get service of the lawsuit? Did you send out discovery? And then you pick a date by which have you set the defendant's deposition yet? So all these things are triggered within your technology system to make sure that there's no failure points. So technology allows us to have checks and balances within our system that reduces the chance of failure. It also makes it easier to train because you don't have to tell a person, hey, remember to set the defendant's deposition. It pops up on the computer through our case management system. So if you have people designing these systems at the beginning when you first buy it to match up with the systems that already occur in your office, then you can design a system that has automatic tasks, automatic reminders that are set up for how you want to do things. And then the further you get into that system and you refine it, the more perfect your law firm becomes. So we've had FileVine about a year. I have about 5 team leaders that are very tech smart. I'm not one of them. And they've designed every system in FileVine in my office and are still fixing and tweaking these systems every day to make sure it covers every task we do, which are all repeated tasks, both in litigation, intake, pre-suit, marketing, finance, all of my departments, so that really nothing can be missed. So the automation and the technology has allowed us to create structures and systems in our office where we just reduce the failure points in the livelihood or the lifespan of a case to practically zero.
So the next question is, then what percent of those checklists were you responsible for creating, just generally speaking?
0.
Even just like on a disorganized piece of paper, like just write, bullet 1, do this after. Nothing.
They're already in place because I've been doing this 25 years. So my team leaders already knew the systems. So the process for me was to tell the team leaders, take your existing systems, which I created years ago, make sure they're up to date, and then use our tech people who are in-house to create those systems within FileVine and make sure that old system goes into the FileVine system and they're therefore transferred. I was involved in none of that. Zero. I know that we have FileVine and I know how to work FileVine, but I didn't create any of the templates, any of the structures, none of the task flows, and none of nothing that's in FileVine was my creation except at the beginning, at the genesis. So the transfer from my existing systems into my CRM, FileVine, didn't even involve me. In fact, they kicked me out of the office for a week when we transferred to FileVine because they think I'd be a nuisance, and they were right.
Yeah, that's what's happening to me. So we've grown from 0 to 10 employees in the last 2 years. I'm getting kicked out of every meeting now because I think I'm inspiring everyone, but really I'm throwing wrenches into everyone's productive schedules with new ideas.
That's called killing the hero. That's killing the hero. And when you can kill the hero and get out of the meetings, you've succeeded.
That's awesome. So I guess the last question that's been kind of lingering in my mind is, what is the biggest mistake or maybe even challenge that for someone, again, who's listening to this, really trying to retain it, feeling a little overwhelmed, doesn't know where to start? Like, what is the biggest mistake that maybe the 7-Figure Attorney Summit or you talking to other lawyers one-on-one, you notice that lawyers who haven't had that light switch go off yet, what are they making?
It's a quote that my biggest mistake is holding on to a fallacy. And that quote is, I can do it better than anybody else can. And business owners, and especially lawyers, and anyone who's type A or organized or an entrepreneur, always thinks they can do it better than anyone else can. And I frequently find out I'm wrong. I think I can do it better than anybody else can, but I can definitely do it differently than they can, but that doesn't mean it's better. So every department I have has come up with ideas, and they're better than what I would have thought of, and they come to me for approval, and I'm just shaking my head going, I'm so glad I delegated this thing or this department, because they live in that department, and they obviously can come up with structures and procedures and fixes because they're living it every day. And I think I'm the smartest guy in the room everywhere, and I'm often wrong. And I'm certainly not the smartest guy in leading the departments that I now do not lead anymore. So I would say the biggest mistake is holding on to, I can do it better than anybody else.
Amazing point. And I just finished the book, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I'm sure you've read that. And he talks about how sometimes the best plans are created by the people on the ground because they're going to know the lay of the land way better than the strategic visionary leader. However, the goals, the KPIs should be thought through and set by the leader, but always fact-checked by the ground forces. Yes,
there's another book that talks about wildly important goals, or WIGs. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember the name of the book.
It's the 4 disciplines.
It is the 4 disciplines. So, wildly important goal can be come up with by the leader. Hypothetically, let's say you want to have $1 million in gross revenue for your law firm. That's a WIG. That's an overall WIG. It's your goal. How it gets implemented does not necessarily have to be designed by you, but you all must buy into the WIG, the goal, which is $1 million in gross revenue. The things that are set up are the mini WIGs, or whatever the book calls them in the 4 disciplines, that are the steps to take to get to the WIG. So if you have 3 WIGs for a year, which is you sign up 200 cases, you gross revenue $1 million, and you hire 2 new people, those are WIGs. But then how you get there can be delegated to other people to come up with ideas, in addition to your own ideas. But taking that big picture approach as the creative business owner, it doesn't matter if you're a visionary. I'm sometimes a visionary. I'm sometimes really in the weeds. But I need to become a master of the larger wigs so that we can have other people empowered in order to get us to the overall big picture wigs.
That's what I call a big wig.
A big wig. There you go.
Yeah, I joked with my team and I told them that's where the term big wig came from.
Must be.
You're supposed to come up with the big wig. So, Craig, I really appreciate your wisdom in this interview. For everyone who's watching, please watch this slowly, like 2 or 3 times, just to really absorb Craig's wisdom here. He has really claimed, he's put his flag in the ground and shouted to the universe, I am a business owner and a lawyer. And he's owned that, and he's claimed that, and he's went all in on leadership. And as a result, he's not making all of the day-to-day decisions that has caused him to go from himself to almost 60 employees in his law firm in one of the most competitive markets in the United States, Southern Florida. And you can do it too, but it requires discipline, it requires time blocking, and it requires that epiphany shift that you're a business owner and a lawyer. But I'd say business owner first, because that allows you to scale your efforts as a lawyer, create the systems that you've created. So Craig, amazing stuff. Thank you so much for your time. For everyone who's interested in Craig's 7-Figure Attorney Summit, go to 7figureattorneysummit.com. Is that right?
It's actually the 7 is spelled out. 7-Figure Attorney.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad I asked. SEVEN attorney, 7figureattorneysummit.com. Go to his website. You can just type in his name too and 7-Figure and it'll pop up. But thank you so much for your time, Craig. I'm sure people are going to get a ton of value from this.
My pleasure, Bill. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned. Subscribe to our channel for real-time updates on the next video that we release. And go to smbteam.com, put in your email for daily legal marketing tips sent to your inbox for free. Thank you.